So I have one question for you, only one. And that's something that should bother you for the next years, is where is value created? Very simple question. And when you look at where value is created, that was yesterday very different as it is today, and it will be different in the future. And I can give you one example of my family business, because I'm born and raised in a 6 feet under family, a casa funeraria for you to explain. And I am dressed in black for that reason. And if you look at the past, when my daddy got a license, he needed to go for education. There were limited licenses in the Netherlands to get his funeral business going, so it was kind of regulated. Today, you and I can start a funeral business by just popping up on Facebook and put a page out there. It's not regulated. We can buy caskets and we get access to everything we need. I believe in the future it will be all about a platform business. Very, very different. So not only for my small family business, also for other companies, this is going to change. And when I studied these exponential technologies and what impact that has on businesses, I started to look on the edge of innovation, all these new technology. And I was wondering if in the now, this represents the way you add value, your business model at the moment, then what is the shift that you need to make in order to get and apply these technologies? So what you see, it's about the shift that's not only happening on the technology side, but also for people and business models. So when you look at the technology shift, everybody has been talking about this. We see artificial intelligence, augmented reality, blockchain, automation, robotics, Internet of Things. And I would like to figure out, okay, so what kind of impact does it have and how can you create value in the longer term? And because of these technologies, people are shifting. So hold your seats because I'm going to move fast. So you used to apply a lawyer to help you out, but now you can do everything yourself online. Maybe you don't need a car anymore because you can just figure it out through BMW. You get access to cars. In retail shopping, don't visit the supermarket because Amazon will deliver it to you, and even you need to warm it up because they have food boxes for you. We thought about meat, but in the near future there is no meat, so there's also a vegetarian butcher. They only produce vegetarian meat. This is sold to Unilever a few months ago. It's a big success. And in the US, we have the Impossible Burger. And then in high school, your kids don't need to be there anymore because they can do it in a different fashion. And in mobility, we use other ways of transport instead of your own. And in shopping, you go 9 to 5, not go to 9 to 5 anymore, but you go to large distribution centers and it will be delivered in your car. So why is this all relevant? Well, if you look at how value is created, for us, it means we would like to have stuff very simple, not complicated. We also would like not to be distracted by all kind of other offers because we are now living in an economy where we are facing abundance. It needs to be flexible, so we'd like to get rid of it as soon as we are done with that. And the end is, it needs to be frictionless. So payments, etc., needs to be as smooth as possible. But you also see that business models are shifting. And my question is, where is value created? And I was talking to one senior executive, and he said, okay, so I'm responsible for a business unit in Europe, but how can I grow in an exponential way? Because if I do the job, I do it well, and it's incremental growth is not going to sustain in the long run. So how can I grow in an exponential way and much faster and better than others? And the tool I want to use for my keynote to understand how value is created in an exponential way is the business model canvas. And this is a tool that is there for about 10 years, when 10 years ago, I, together with Alex Osterwalder and Yves Peigneur, published this tool through a book. And what it shows is actually how you as a company create value. So it is about who is the customer on the right-hand side that you're adding value for. What is the value proposition, a service or product you offer? Through what channels are you making that work? What kind of relationship you have? And then how do you transfer that into revenue streams for your company? So that's the value part on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you need to understand what is the infrastructure that I need to have in place in order to deliver this value. So what about resources, activities, partners, and the cost structure? So this model is going to come back a few more times, but I thought, if this is the way we add value, what would that look like in a different way when we look at exponential value? So when it comes to exponential value, I'm looking into exponential business models. And what does exponential mean? Well, I think the only thing you need to remember, how can an increase becoming more and more rapid without any interference of your people, of your company? It's just growing faster and faster by itself. And then Peter Diamandis, he said, it's not about incremental like 10%, it's about exponential, so it's 10x. So I thought, why don't we look at the business model canvas and look at each and every building block? How can we create this exponential movement? And my team studied globally over 100 business models, and we came on to these 10 elements that help you design an exponential business model. So these are the 10 crucial elements, and not every company is touching every one of them. However, you can use this as an inspiration to think, what would my model look like if I dive into some of these exponential elements? So one is about platform business models. So when you connect supply and demand automatically, exponential growth will be there. It's also about community of fans. How are community of fans doing the work for you so that you don't need to advertise anymore? What about digital channels and also digital offerings? I call it information-based offering, because sometimes these are physical products, but you can acquire them in a digital fashion. Scalable processes, algorithm to the core, self-managing teams, a lean approach, and leverage partners. So before I discuss this, I would like you to look at a linear model. So when you look at the linear model, let's look at the 90s, a few years ago. And at this point in time, videos, DVDs were sold through video stores. And then Mark and Reed thought, okay, we can beat those guys, because why do you need to go to a physical store? So they thought, let's ship these tapes and make it work. But these tapes were far too complicated. They would break down, so they thought we're gonna ship DVDs. And this was a very linear business model from the start. So let's see what that looks like. So for the ease of use, I use the mass market as a customer segment, but they had 925 DVDs. You can order them through mail, and either you would rent them or you'd buy them. And what they needed to do is distribution, have the network of customers, and they need to have the titles like the DVDs. But in this fashion, that means that every other revenue would only come if you would acquire another DVD, if you would copy that. So you could say that this is one DVD, 2x revenue. It's very linear fashion of running your business. And what was interesting is that at some point in time, they said, we are going to offer a flat fee, a subscription, to rent DVDs. And this is a very mind-breaking example. And why? Because at Blockbuster, they were still making money on the fact that you return your DVD far too late. So the late returns was a big income for the company. And they said, we don't care. We believe that there's a much bigger market if we offer a free subscription. Oh, sorry, a monthly subscription. So what happened is the number of DVDs they shipped started to grow like crazy. And it was interesting. So when you think of shifting the business model from linear, moving away from linear, this really means like somebody needs to step up, be a rebel, and say, I have the belief that it's going to be different. So that's what they did. And then the next was, okay, so how do we make sure that we're going to predict what your next video is about? And they realized that they did not have the technology, the capacity to do that themselves. So they reached out to startups and they ran a competition where startups could apply, and one startup here on top, they designed a better algorithm than their own team could make. So this outperformed the Netflix team. And because of that, they started to use the algorithm. And then when the technology emerged, then video on demand was possible. So they shifted into a model where the channels all of a sudden became digital, and it was not about shipping DVDs, but it was streaming video on demand. And with that algorithm and the data, they knew exactly who was watching what kind of content and what point in time, and they knew that much, much better than all the competitors in the industry. So you see that their model is shifting. So one big shift was about knowing that you could offer a subscription model. Second, knowing you're not the best in class to design an algorithm. Others can do a much better job. But thirdly, they also needed to change the business model in the industry. And I know that this person is has a bad reputation, but he is not known for his business wisdom. So he saw a television series in the UK about politics, and he said, I want to bring this video series to the US, but we need to be just, with my team, we need to broadcast this, not in a linear fashion. So he wanted not to go for the linear way, where all the advertising models were there, and it was on a weekly broadcast program. He said, I want to think about it differently. So why are we not going to offer this content all at once? And that was very different from how the industry was organized. And then the broadcaster said, this is the worst idea you can ever imagine. But he said, no, I have a strong vision. I believe that the device and the length are irrelevant, and what people want is stories. And they can decide for themselves when and how they watch, and how much they want to watch. So he broke the linear model, and he said it just needs to be there at a reasonable price. So that was the game of Kevin, and then Netflix said yes. Because the other broadcasters, they said, we just need to make sure that we run a pilot, we need to know whether this is going to be a cool series. But Netflix said, we already know. We know your actors, we know the topics that people are interested in, so we are in the game. So then you see that the exponential model of Netflix, it is about a recurring model on a subscription, very easy to connect through the channels. They have unique content because of their algorithm, and then here you see their IP and their algorithm. That's how they perform better than the others in the industry. And I asked my designers to make a visual of that, and it looks like this. Is it more clear? So what you can see is that streaming video, digital channels, AI causes this to be like more exponential. And if we can do a test to understand this exponential movement, how many people of you 4 years ago had Netflix? 4 years ago? How many people have Netflix right now? It's kind of exponential, no? So this is a summary: digital channels, information-based offering, and algorithm to the core. But let's look at artificial intelligence. So if you look at this technology, I was wondering, okay, so how can this create value? So I want to introduce you to Eric Jan, and yeah, he's happy. What he wanted to do, he said, I run a hotel in the Netherlands, and we have 45 million revenue each year. And we have a pipeline of 90 million. The thing is, we don't have enough time to spend time with our customers, with our guests. So how am I going to change that? Why? Because they need to spend time on writing proposals, and they get 10,000 emails every month. And the question is, do you have enough capacity to handle them? Because these are all requests. And how are you going to make sure that you answer the right email? So he started to develop artificial intelligence, AI kind of algorithm. And what this algorithm does, they understand the email that you write, they look in the database where the conference room or the hotel rooms are available, and they look at the pricing schedule, and in real time, he can send you a proposal. But what they did is that they delayed the response of Michiel, the system, for 30 minutes. Why? Because people did not believe that this was an honest and clear quote. Right? And what about the business model? If you look at the business model also of this hotel, it's pretty straightforward. So it is about corporate companies, online channel, conference room, bedrooms, food and beverage. But it took so much time to figure out and write a proposal. And now when he can do that in a very short period of time, you see that there's a huge time gain for him and the team, and also for the customers. The offer is right away at the right spot, increased customer satisfaction, and a big efficiency in his team, all based on this AI technology. And what you see is, I told you he has a pipeline of 90 million, sales of 45 million. He now sees an increase of 4 to 6%. So compared to the others, the other hotels, he's doing a much better job. One more about artificial intelligence is, I'm running a company in Amsterdam, and I want to do a investment in setting up a building that's a complete different experience when you do innovation. So my investment was adding up almost to $1 million, and I got pretty worried. So I thought, I'm going to connect with my bank. Is this Orange Bank from the Netherlands? I can't mention the name. And they said, oh, that's super cool, because like we can do that for you, not easy and so on. It's super easy, and you have the right number, so don't worry. But what happened is that it took time, more meetings. It was not clear what kind of information they need. So I thought at the end, maybe I'd never get this investment. And I was worried. So as an entrepreneur, you get these sleepless nights. And then there's another company, it's called New10, and they have an algorithm. And based on the algorithm, they give you a grant or a loan, yes or no. So you go to the website, you tap in, I need 700,000 euros. They ask you to upload your bank statements for 3 months. And within 15 minutes, they say yes or no. So within 15 minutes, they said, Patrick, we're happy to give you this loan. Upload your passport information. Confirm that you own the bank account. And then I did that. And then they sent me an email. He said, push this button, and tomorrow this amount will be in your bank, and we're super happy that you can take on your entrepreneurial dream. And I was like, really? So imagine, like, they can do this in such short period of time. So that means, like, their digital channel are super, super efficient, much faster and better than a bank in this case. And based on the algorithm, that you could do it much faster and much better. So this is all about AI. And today we also talked about platforms. And I want to take you on a journey about platforms to help you understand how they operate and how they work. So it's important to understand that there are people who produce stuff on a platform and who consume stuff. So in the case of Uber, if you look at the consumers like you and me, we can use the app, and it's very easy because there's easy order and pick up. There's a clear price up front, and also you can review your driver, and then, see, you don't need to have cash when you leave the cab. Super easy, no? But what about the car driver? I was wondering, why do car drivers want to be on the platform? And I asked that every single time. And they said, for us it's super easy because we have an income opportunity. The other thing is, we can do an easy pickup. We don't have to wait on this square for drunken English people in Amsterdam. We don't need to wait for them anymore. And then, because we can review them as well. And then on Sunday, I don't need to do administration because they do that for me. And what do we learn from platforms? Well, one thing is they start actually to move from a pipeline to a platform. That's what we discussed already. But if you look at the business model, then you see that these are you and me. We have taxi services from A to B. We do that through the app, and then we pay a fee. But the drivers are not part of your resources. The drivers have also a value proposition, and they pay a fee, and it also goes through the app. And as a platform, you only run the platform. You connect the drivers, the producers, and the consumers, right? So what about platform and how does that work? Well, they connect based on a value trigger. You think like, what is a value trigger? That means like, it's a clear price, the car, and you know exactly where you're going. And in a platform, this information needs to be super, super transparent and clear. The more clear, the more likely people will go and start to use these services. So when I have discussions with banks, with executive teams, when they say we're going to shift to a platform business model, that's pretty difficult because there's so many different services. So here you see with Uber a very simple service. So this is the value trigger that everybody connects to. And there is no point to connect as a, to start to model all the consumers, because why would you care if you go from Madrid to Bilbao, or that's pretty expensive by the way with a cab, but there's no need. It's only about the producer. So what you see is that platforms also create new customer segment, and that's what we call the network effect. But what does that mean? Well, that means because it's much cheaper, it's 40% cheaper than maybe my grandmother who never takes the cab, now all of a sudden she will be a customer. Because the price is lower, because the platform, more people will come also to the platform. And on the other hand, you see that students, my son who can borrow my car, he's 12 years old, but he's not gonna borrow my car, but like if the students, they can just operate as a car driver and they push the button and they can drive. So you see that new customer segments who have never ever been on the platform, they all of a sudden start to become a cab driver. And that's what we call the network effect. So one more thing is that here, so here you see that you and me, also other customers will enter, and drivers, other drivers will enter. And when you look at platform business, is platforms also start to generate more platforms. So this is Uber, but another example is Uber Eats. And what does that mean? Is you go to Uber Eats app, you click on the food you want, and then it's delivered by the driver or the biker. But when you think of the business model, these are not just two customer segments. There's another segment, because here's still you and me. We would like to order the food, goes to the app, we pay a fee, and then we have the drivers who take it to you, but then the restaurants are also a customer. So you see that despite the Uber business model, here is another customer segment, and they also get a benefit. It's amazing, no? So if you ask restaurants, they say like, wow, once we are connected to Uber Eats, our revenue is going like crazy because we have another channel and it's made super easy for us. So when you see in the press that they say they charge a lot to restaurants or to drivers, they couldn't care less because they see the benefit of more and more revenue. And another example is coming when platforms start to create new platforms. It's also about Uber Fly. And Uber Fly, again, you and me, easy commute through the app with a fee. And then the question is, there is a driver, we call him pilot, but who's going to own the fleet? I don't know. So there will be a third party who start or needs to offer this. And I don't know who's going to be that, but for sure, somebody who needs to operate and finance these cars. So by looking systematically at understanding platforms, then you get a much different and better perspective on what would that mean for your company if you would like to enter into a platform or design a platform yourself. So you see here, platforms solve many problems for others, the digital channels, the apps, very clear information-based offering, and also the algorithm. There's also a thing what we see, a shift from products to services. And it's another platform I want to show you that's actually very close by. Have you seen this step, this lime, here in the city? Yeah? Who has used it? So what I find fascinating that about this product is not about the product. And I don't know if you remember this one. It's not about the product. And it never ever worked. Oops. Again, Yeah, again. And what you see, it's all about the business model. So it operates like a platform with the Internet of Things. And what does that look like? It's a connected platform, and I started to use this last week in Brussels, and it's super easy. So you see this step, you download the app, and then you put it onto the barcode, and it will activate your step, and then you can drive. And here you see, you can keep track of where you were driving, what it would cost, and you can just stop, and you leave it somewhere in the city. It needs to be safe though, but you can leave it anywhere in the city. The app asks you to make a picture, and then it knows where this step is located. So pretty straightforward. But the question is, how is this going to be a platform then? So you and me step right from A to B. It's fun. The app, you pay a little bit. But then, who's in the platform? Who else? Well, these things need to be charged. And they don't have all people who they employ who are going to charge this stuff. This can be you and me. So you can today quit your job and charge Lime steps. Yeah? No. And then you see in the app, so for example, this is Alex, and he has, here you see his setup, and then he can pick up all these different limes, and then he gets paid for when he charges these steps. And then he is requested to put it back in rows of 4 in the city, and that's his job. So you see in the platform, they connect people who have an income opportunity, same as with Uber, and there are people who start to use this. And when you look at the business model, then you see here the Lime chargers, and there is an income opportunity. So again, this is a platform model, and it's interesting to start to think, okay, so why is this exponential? And then I see is that it is a platform, it is a digital channel, it's super easy to connect, it just costs you maybe 30 seconds to do that if you have a credit card. And then you can go, and then the algorithm helps to locate and understand what kind of movements there are and where the step is going and so on. So you could ask yourself, okay, if we have products that we offer, how is this shift going towards services and to a platform by just understanding how this model works? Another one I would like to show you is a more digital business model, and this is Picnic. It's an Dutch origin company, and you could also compare this with Amazon Fresh. So if you order, it's through the app. It's super easy because it's fully focused on you as a customer, what are your needs, etc., etc. So they don't come with this type of information. It's very, very limited, and it knows exactly what you like, what you don't like. And then they have their own distribution centers, no supermarkets, and they don't charge you for delivery. And these guys are so super nice that people start to make selfies because they see this as their ideal son-in-law. And when you visualize the model, is what is interesting is based on what is ordered in the app, they send that through these suppliers, and therefore they order on demand through their suppliers, and they have 70% less waste. It's incredible, no? But they don't have any supermarket, and they don't charge for delivery costs, and they're still cheaper than the regular supermarkets. So you see, we have the physical supermarkets who started many, many years ago, and now we have Picnic, and they started online. And when you study their model, what I find fascinating is that you have a community of fans because people love it. There's a digital channel, information-based, scalable processes, algorithm, and they have a lean approach how they organize and build things. One other thing is when it comes to community of fans, are you familiar with Hatsune Miku? Yeah, so she's a pop artist. No? Yes? So she's a pop artist in Japan, but she does not exist. So if you think of an exponential model, I think this is the best you can ever imagine, because you put on the screen and then she's there. So Vocalist Software, they developed this together with Crypt and Future Media, and also together with Yamaha. And Hatsune meets the first sound of the future. And if you look at their business model, it's also a platform, but it started with software, with voice software, that creatives started to use in order to copy and compose different songs. And they don't need real artists to perform. They were just trying this. And then you saw another group connected, like you and me, and it started to come up with own lyrics. And that's how the platform started to grow. And right now, what is interesting is that they have a huge base of community of fans. They create and they tell what this lady is going to sing. And here, it's not about the songs anymore. It's also about royalties of the products that they sell. So again, this is an exponential business model, and it touches other boxes. So I find the notion around community of fans super interesting. So how can you do that as a company? Have you ever ordered any coffee in San Francisco with Cafe X? So these are robots that serve you coffee. And the first coffee was poured in 1555 in Greece. And then this guy said, I don't want to be pulling cups and filling cups all the time. So I think a robot can do the same job. So he started to invest big time in a robot. And what you see is, if you look at the value proposition, it's still barista coffee, no more waiting lines. The fee is much cheaper than what you would order if you go to Starbucks. However, the business model is not profitable yet. So there is robotics in this business model, but the question is this going to be profitable over time? So I see this as an experiment. It's very interesting, but we're not sure if you and I accept a robot barista, or if we rather go to Starbucks where we pay the regular fee. So the other thing, if you look at partnerships, and that's the last model I want to discuss, this is Peter Schwarzbauer. He's responsible for innovation at BMW. And he said, for the first time in our existence, we are not able to do everything ourselves anymore. So leveraging partners, do co-innovation with partners you never imagined before, is something that is super hot and very effective if you would like to grow your business. So he said, if you think of autonomous driving, we could never ever facilitate this with our own fleet and customers and our own data. We need to cooperate with others. And what do you think about the U-Space? The U-Space is this area where you can fly with drones. And here also you see a co-innovation initiative with Airbus and with Audi. And they try to figure out, okay, so what would it look like if we are in business in the U-Space? What you see is that they start to work together, they have the technology, but the question is this going to be a platform? Are people willing to pay for that? So we haven't seen the model working yet. So they are still experimenting, and they try to figure it out. So I'm wondering if they would have clients soon. So my last topic is, if you would like to do innovation, my first question was, where is value created? But the second one is, okay, so how are you going to do this? And one thing is, you need to think of a total innovation system, because you're not just there, try to figure out some stuff. No, you need to be there in the long run, because innovation needs to be your one muscle that you're good at and you keep on doing in your company. And Larry also talked about this, is, okay, so what does innovation mean? And on the one hand it is about core innovation, meaning using existing products and innovate in an incremental way. That's interesting. But the next question is, how can you do adjacent innovation, meaning enter new customer segments or new products or services? And on another horizon, in a very transformational way, maybe something that you never ever have developed or thought about before. And then the question for you is, where are you going to invest? Are you going to invest in the core or in adjacent or transformational? And what is your project return going to look like? And this is the most important picture when it comes to innovation, is just on one single coaster. You need to understand that innovation is something very different than what you're doing in your business at the moment. So at the moment, your business is on the right-hand side, and you are executing a business. You have a customer segment, you have a value proposition, and people who are willing to pay for that. That requires different tools. It's all about optimization, planning, meetings, etc. When you do something like innovation, you need to start from scratch. There's no need to do that in the same organization. Why? Because it's all about search. You need to search for customers, search for value propositions, and see if people are willing to pay for that. So that means this game is very different. And when you map that out in a process, then you see a line that starts from learning, understand problems, then discover if somebody is willing to pay for a service, then figure out if you can grow and accelerate. So that is something that you should start in a very slow fashion. The other thing is, when you look at metrics in your current business, it's all about revenue and profits. But when you start innovation, these have different metrics. So you would like to figure out maybe how many problem interviews you have, a churn rate, how many users you reached, and in the end, it's about revenue. When it comes to capabilities, in the core business, you have those capabilities. I'm not surprised, because this incremental innovation and improvement is something that you already do. But when you move up into transformational, you see that the entrepreneurial mindset needs to be in place, because you're starting a complete new venture. And when it comes to running the business, we see that companies don't spend time so much on that. So the way we run a business is 70% today, 25% tomorrow, and 5% the day after tomorrow. But what we do actually, we are cleaning the shit of yesterday. We're not working on the future. And this is something that Peter Hinsen said from Belgium, and I like this notion. So it should be more about today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and I think that's also the reason why you are here. So I would like to summarize. So one simple question: where is value created? So we talked about the exponential value. So these are the elements that you can find and give you inspiration. We need to learn from other business models. It's super easy, because once you map them out and you understand them, you can do a much better job. So the question for you is, what does your next business model look like? And when is value created, meaning today, tomorrow, or in the near future? And how value is created, it really goes through a total innovation system. Thank you very much for your time. This is what I do every day. And I am, thank you.